has a question. What do you want to know?
I have a question.
Yes.
Whose books do you like to read?
Yeah.
How old am I now, Jeanette? Oh my gosh. I always feel like at the age of almost 65, I can't even answer that question anymore because I've read and loved so many different people. I will say, just not necessarily to sort of like lift him up on a pedestal, but many, many years ago I read Goodbye Columbus by Philip Roth, and that's when the movie came out, read the book, blah, blah, blah. For some reason, over the last 6 weeks, is Philip Roth coming? I know he's dead. Is he coming to town or something? Because I've been reading all of his novels. Anyway, so I read probably half a dozen Roth novels in the past 6 weeks to 2 months, and just been staggered by. I read the American trilogy, which is staggering to me. Let me answer the question this way too, Jeanette. One of the biggest challenges I had before I started writing was when I started writing Scarred Angels. I said, dude, this doesn't sound like anybody you read, okay? Because I was like Mr. Anthony Burgess, Thomas Pynchon, all of the John Updike, Scarred Angels is a very simple story, simple narrator telling a simple story, a gnarly story, but a simple story, and it was like, whoa, didn't quite jive at first because it was like, these don't sound like the people I'm reading, and then I had to realize it's not their story. And I really had to realize also that it was not my story. I mean, I had to realize that these characters need to tell their stories, and I need to get out the way and let them speak their story. And so, in the third novel that I wrote and finished a couple of years ago, I actually got way in the way of half of the novel, so much so that when I showed it to Tina, she said, that needs to go in the trash. And so she didn't say it that way, but that essentially it did go in the trash, and I had to rewrite the whole last half of the novel because I had sort of like concocted it all out of my stomach. So anyway, but I mean, I just, I wish I feel like if I did it, I'd just be like, rattling off name after name after name. And all I can say is that, for the last 6 weeks, I've been inundated in Roth and finding just staggering prose that I would have never even predicted to find in that. I think I would highly recommend The Human Stain, and I would highly recommend the first one. Yeah, American Pastoral. American Pastoral is just like, oof. Those two, those are the bookends, but the novel, the trilogy novel in the middle is I Married a Communist. And also Exit Ghost. I just finished Exit Ghost, which is another Nathan Zuckerman novel, one of his alter egos. And, yeah, here's the beauty of it. We'll never read everything we want to read, right? We'll never, ever, ever, ever read everything we want to read. But they're all out there for us, And so I'll discover authors. I mean, I think of myself as, I've been pretty up on it for a while. No, I mean, I run into people like, I've never heard of that person. I need to read that person now or something. So, not a good answer to your question, but no. yeah. So
he was always like this. He read everything. I'm not kidding.
That's part of his let's see what I remember. Yeah, I remember reading all of Atwood before she came, right? Yeah.
Another question? Yes.
How old were you when the first time you wrote something that you thought was special, whatever young age?
Sure.
The first time you thought,
sure.
I like that. That feels good.
Awesome. Great question. When I was 39 years old, living in New Orleans, I said, I want to write a short story for my birthday. And so that weekend, I wrote a short story. It was set in the hill country of Texas. I was living in New Orleans, and it was set in the hill country of Texas. And no, wait a minute. No, that one was set. That one actually was set in Canipa, Texas. Actually, it was about a pig woman, a woman who raised pigs. And so I sat down, and it took me 2 days to write that story, and I liked it a lot. and I like the experience of writing it a lot. And so for the next 6 to 8 months, I wrote about a dozen short stories, all of them set in the hill country of Texas. Again, living in New Orleans. I had sworn never, ever, ever, ever to write a novel or anything set in New Orleans because I wasn't a native, so I wasn't legit. My fourth novel is set in New Orleans. Forget the legit part. So anyway, and then about 8 months into that process, a friend of mine said, well, what about a novel? Why not write a novel? And I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. Let's do that. And so I got hit by a rampaging scandal in New Orleans that became, it was wedded with my nostalgia for San Antonio and this scandal that blew up 1 block from the house that I lived in New Orleans. And that became Scarred Angels. Yes.
You had mentioned earlier that, and I think all 3 of your novels, that you had black women as strong, right, colorful, portrayed in your novels. I'm interested in what inspired you, or why did you choose to put them in that position? I mean, I know why I would have used them.
And why would that be, Victoria? Oh, we get to be politically incorrect in here, right? I think that's awesome. There are a few different ways to answer that question, Victoria. Well, I thought of another one too. Okay, so, well, first of all, I used to joke with my students at Winston, and I got called on the carpet for doing this after having been doing it for about 2 years. I said, y'all don't really know this. Whenever they'd get a little like out of line and like sort of like slightly racist or something like that, I say, y'all don't realize that I'm a sassy black lesbian, okay? That went down just fine for about 2 years until an administrator decided that was inappropriate. But anyway, so that's one piece. I am a sassy black lesbian. Oh my God, this is on film, right? Okay. Who cares? All right. So, Peter talks to God in this novel. I'm not a very good talker to gods or whatever's, but let's see, it'd be about 26 years ago or so. I was in New Orleans, and I started having a conversation in a taqueria with this voice, and the voice was like, I'm going to just tell the story. I'm just telling the story, Victoria. Okay. I was having air conditioning problems, right? And I was like, oh my God, no. And it was in August. Terrible time to have air conditioning problems. So I'm sitting there in this restaurant, and this voice comes into my head, and he says, I'll take care of your air conditioning. I'm like, who the hell are you? I'm like, okay, so, and then I said, I know who you are. You're Yamaya. Now, Yamaya is a Yoruban African goddess who's also been brought and adopted into the Western culture in Cuba and Brazil and all over. She's also Selena's daughter's name, Yamaya. And she said, I'll take care of your air conditioning problems. I'm like, okay. She says, but then, so we're kind of a little haggling here, and I said, you're one of those goddesses who's going to want something in return. And she said, yes. And I said, so what do you want in return? She said, just your firstborn. I'm like, okay. I'm like, at this time in my life, these two beautiful people were not in my life. Tina and Walden were not in my life. I was living a life of a person who was absolutely convinced I would never have a child, okay? Beyond that beautiful woman back there, but we were kind of in exile at that time. Tony. And So I said, okay, I'm going to assume that you must mean my first novel, right? And she's like, okay, whatever. So I said, okay. And then she said, because this is what Yemaya does, don't fuck with me. I'm like, ooh, a goddess who says, don't fuck with me. I like this goddess. So anyway, so I got back to the house. The air conditioner it was like no problem. It was fixed. We'd actually called somebody over to take a look at it. Said, oh, it's no big deal. It just froze out. But it's fine. It, didn't cost anything, whatever. I'm like, that's not really fixing the air conditioner. And I heard her voice say, don't fuck with me. So if you look in the beginning of Scarred Angels, that book is dedicated to Yemaya. Okay. Now, of course, those of us who love wordplay and all, air conditioning, right? Air conditioning, like air, A-I-R, right? But I was also being air conditioned, H-E-I-R, air conditioning. She was air conditioning me. She was getting me ready, all right, for this beautiful man and this beautiful woman in my life. So, whoa, who asked that question? You asked that question. Okay.
So does it tie into your interest in the Black Madonna?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, absolutely. Because Yemaya led me to a book called Longing for Darkness by a woman named China Galland, Galland. And she goes on a quest to find the Black Madonnas all over the world, but also the Black Buddha, Tara, and Kali, in Hindu. And she comes to San Antonio and goes to Our Lady of Czestochowa over there on Beethoven Street, which is where the shrine to the Black Madonna is here in San Antonio. And so this whole Yemaya, Daltrey and Scarred Angels, May Taylor, they are all manifestations, embodiments of the Black Madonna and let's call it my devotion to the Black Madonna. That's why she shows up all the time. So, yeah.
One more question? Somebody close it? Oh, good. Uh-oh.
2 more questions.
Two. Go ahead.
The older I get, the more I recognize that environments are important, but I'm carrying one with me from early in life. Which of your landscapes are you carrying with you from early in your life? Is it Texas? Is it hill country?
It's river canyons. So it's the Frio River Canyon. Okay, it's the Greenbelt Canyon in Austin. It's the hill country. I think it's the hill country, Tom. I think, and I just kind of discovered that the first short stories I wrote were kind of romances, and they were all set either in Connippa or in the hill country. Because, as I just say that to you, I think back to what a magical place that was when I was a little boy. When we would go up Highway 16, when Highway 16 was a highway into the country and not just Bandera Road into Helotes into whatever. I mean, it was a country road. It was a country drive on Sundays. We'd turn on to Bandera and head on up to Helotes and go to John T. Flora. I mean, so the sort of magic of, and also a couple of years after I graduated undergrad, I surveyed land in the hill country north of Uvalde. And so a lot of times we'd be driving up the highway from Uvalde up into around Concan and on up to Lakey and all, and that was just magical. I mean, I was up here looking down into the valleys and everything like that. That just kind of got inside me, I think. Yeah, hill country and rivers. Selena?
Like you, I'm very grateful to NAB and all you've done for our community.
You're
coming
sweet,
into our
Selena.
schools, inspiring
And
us to
I
write.
you.
I'm bringing so many wonderful writers to Gemini Ink.
Absolutely.
And as former inkers, ex-inkers as we say, we were able to attend, and curious people, attend
Right.
a lot of readings,
Right.
Take a lot of classes,
Right.
and
Right.
be on our budget, right?
Right.
And just chat with writers. And I wondered if you had a class or a piece of advice or
Okay.
just something that, and there might be many, but that really struck you and stuck with you as a writer, as a human being.
the two experiences of writers that really were I felt were the biggest blessings. And I'll talk about this and I'll see, nothing comes to mind immediately about what may have come from them, but just the blessing of being in their presence. And you know, the first one was Grace Paley. It's weird. When I heard Grace Paley was coming, like, Grace Paley, who's Grace Paley? Whatever, you know, like, well, and then I read Grace Paley. And I, prior to reading Grace Paley, I was a humongous, and still am a humongous fan, although I don't like his latest fiction, of a man named Paget Powell. And Paget was a student of Donald Bartlemy. And Donald Bartlemy was a contemporary, and I would say probably still a student of Grace Paley. So this lineage was right there. And so I was when I read Grace for the first time, I was reading Paget Powell's grandmother, okay? Fictional grandmother, literary grandmother. And she blew me away. I was like, whoa, this is calculus. This woman's fiction, this prose is calculus. I was thinking about her after I answered your question there, Jeanette. Because she was the biggest blessing, just because, I mean, you introduced her, and I got to hang out with her and walk her around, and she's holding my arm and just talking to me, and
What a voice.
oh, just an amazing.
If you don't know her work, it's
Oh, my
funny,
God.
it's tight,
Oh, my God.
it's
Yeah,
wise, it's
Oof. You just get her collected stories, and she's just phenomenal.
And two, you
Oh,
said
my
there was
God.
someone else.
The other one was Li Young Lee.
Oh.
Okay. Li Young Lee, Chinese, initially went to Indonesia, ran out of, was it mainland China or was it?
I can't
Yeah,
remember.
but anyway, family exiled to Indonesia.
father
Then
was
they
a
come
Baptist
to
preacher.
Chicago. And Li Young Lee is an amazing poet. I mean, just an amazing poet. So he comes and he does a workshop. And I got to sit right next to him at the workshop, and you know, but again, and you know this story. So Li Young Lee, brilliant man. We're talking movies. I don't really like what do you call it? The Ang Lee dragon, whatever. Come on, help me.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Okay. Don't really like that. That's not the real kung fu, right? He's like, no, I like the real kung fu movies. So he's like, that's too artsy for me, you know. But that's not the best Li Young Lee story. We always like to treat our people really, really well. We get them really good food and stuff like that. So we got, you know, Jen Hamilton Hernandez now went to Central Market, got all this big feast for Li Young Lee. And, you know, he was very appreciative of it. But at some point, somebody took him to the Sonic. And so the next day, we're talking about, well, where might we want to go eat now? He's like, and he goes, do you think we could go back to the Sonic? Because they have, and he would do the hand thing. He said, they have those chicken sandwiches. And he had just the width, man. He's like, those chicken sandwiches. And yeah, that's where I want to go. I want to go to the Sonic. So, all right, so what's the lesson of that? The lesson, I mean, here you have this brilliant man, but he's in the world, right? He's in the world. He's not up here. He's in the world. Oh, God, he's just phenomenal. Yeah, he can do it all. He can do it all. He can do it all, yes. So those two, I mean, of course, there's Ricky Ducournay for other reasons, but, you know. Ricky Ducournay, you know, very sort of avant-garde author, writer, was for a long time at the University of Denver, no longer there. I'm not sure. I don't know where she's gone, where she's lit up. But anyway, so she, very, very exotic woman, everything like that. But the problem for Ricky is that as awesome a writer as she is, her claim to fame is she was the inspiration for Ricky Don't Lose That Number. Okay? So, and it's like, so, and what's funny is like, she doesn't really like that, but she always makes sure that you know that's the story, right? So I'm like, I'm rejecting it, but, you know, so anyway, so those two, Selena.